Welcome to the Breadwinners, the podcast about the never-ending hustle and its impact on all aspects of our lives. We're interested in what it takes to keep everything going. This podcast is about women, working, money, and family. We consider the research, talk to experts, and share our takes on what we're learning every day about breadwinning. I'm Jennifer Owens. I write about working, wellness, and women, and founded the Working Mother Research Institute. And most days, I'm joined by my co-host, Raquel Ellison. On this episode of The Breadwinners, I'm joined by Lynn Harris, founder and CEO of Gold Comedy, an online platform for funny, as it courses on writing and telling jokes, assembling a stand-up comedy set, and trying out your material, all targeted to young girls, young women, and non-binary folks. Harris herself is an author and journalist, creative strategist, and a mostly retired stand-up who knows the power of a good joke to propel an important message and a sense of confidence. That's why she founded Gold Comedy, to make that power more accessible. All of which is to say, welcome, Lynn.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
I usually start conversations around like some sort of number or a trend or something. And I found this one from 2018 in the Chicago Reader. There is a local comic in Chicago who did a survey of comedy showcases, and she found that the performers are 70% male, 29% female, and 1% non-binary. And I'm suspecting that that is true in any city you go to, or maybe Chicago is better than the others. And so I'm just wondering what that stat says to you and the state of, women in comedy right now.
I mean, that stat is probably pretty true anywhere you go. It's actually similar to statistics in other businesses, right? I mean, that's one thing that people kind of forget and overlook about comedy, since it can be a very creative pursuit. They forget that it's also a job and a workplace. Even though you may not have one workplace, you have many workplaces that you go to, and some are in basements.
Yeah.
But
it's called temping. Yeah.
Exactly. Temping with jokes. And people forget that kind of imbalance matters because, for a bunch of reasons, because comedy is work, because women are humans, and because comedy is, and also because comedy is power. That would be an unfair statistic, as we were saying, in any job, but it matters. Comedy is certainly not the only place that it matters, but I care in particular about comedy because I love comedy, and also because we relate to comedy as authority. We relate to who's telling jokes, has control of the room,
who's interpreting our moment, right? In the, who's saying, look around what's happening to us now. Here's a point of view.
And if the default setting of that is only one gender and often only one color, then first of all, that's not fair to the rest of the people who are in that workplace. And also it's not fair to us as the audience. Yeah. And so what you'll find in this, literally in stand-up, what you'll find is that, people, this is happening less and less, and we can talk about that. Things are moving in the right direction. But what happened when I did stand-up, and it still does happen, not as often, is there'll be a lineup, with one woman. And the MC will say, no, we've got a lady coming to the stage. So what you get is, and I'm no lady, and so what you get is the idea that comedy is dudes and women are the exception. Like, women are sort of
we're accommodating this one woman. Right. It's always, So
it's like women are a genre, not a gender. And that's why I can die happy if I never hear the word comedian again, because it sounds like, ENNE, it sounds like a subset of actual comedy,
Oh, editrix, that was a thing for a while, or an editress, no.
I don't even know actress.
And I think it's so important because there's, right, that's like that, because if, you can, it's in all forms of media that, you can go off and produce a podcast for no money. You can go off and write jokes. You could do open mics, but the only way you're going to make a living is if people invest in you, if you get the funding for it, or put together funding to start your own club, or, whatever the entrepreneurial part of it is. But if women aren't getting the funding, then it means you're muted as a matter of course. All this is a business, and if the money doesn't flow to one gender, then it mutes their voice.
Yeah, and they don't get paid. It's both.
Right.
It's both. It's the access to the power of all that comedy offers, and it's just like it's a job. You got to get paid. You got to get paid, and everyone should be paid equally. And I mean, it doesn't pay enough as it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, you're totally right. It's true on all those levels.
Yeah, but at least let's all get poorly paid equally. Well, so tell me about.
Let's workshop that slogan. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me about Gold Comedy. And so tell me about being an entrepreneur in comedy and what you're trying to do there.
So Gold, as you correctly said, is the platform for young women and non-binary folks who want to be their funniest selves. We offer comedy as a path to comedy. In other words, you get, by studying comedy, by doing comedy with us, you get access to classes and courses and events with celebrities and Q&As. And how do I get to be like you? You get to ask we have tons of cool people who come and visit, like Judy Gold, Millie Tamares, and the female writers of The Daily Show, and Rachel Bloom, and and they come and inspire us, and in our private Zooms with cool people, and we have courses on sketch comedy and stand-up comedy and storytelling and tons of different things. We have open mics, we have performance opportunities, and the end game is for people to get better at comedy in a community of nerds who want to nerd out about comedy together. So it's not just the classes, it's the community of people who are there. They get your jokes and they got your back. So, but you don't have to want to be a comedy pro to be interested in Gold and get the results, because it's our assumption that, and this bears out, that getting better at comedy gets you better at lots of things. You get to be a faster thinker, a sharper writer. You get to boost confidence, smash perfectionism, all those things, because you realize that nobody ever died from not getting a laugh. And you can make it. It's fine.
Are you sure?
You just, well, there was that one guy. But you just get up and do it again. And it's like, you realize that not getting a laugh is so not a big deal. And that's the point of offering tons of opportunities for workshopping and performance, is that you just do it again over and over. There's no one big time that's like the biggest deal. You just keep at it. And especially in a safe, in a community that is gonna not judge you if you don't get a laugh one time. Who cares?
Right.
So, and I think that's important for everybody. But I think the cool thing is that it's not just about one of our Goldies getting more confident. It's because they're confident when they show up, right? Because they want to do comedy, they're into it. But what's really important is that the more folks we can kind of churn out into the world who are willing to fail, who are willing to just put themselves out there and up on stage and do all this thing and take control and make people listen to them. The real change comes when it's not that we change individual people, we change the culture out there that right now doesn't really listen to young women and non-binary folks. We make those people listen. So, when you make people laugh, you make people listen. And so that's why we believe that comedy is power. And what we care about is not just me getting, more willing to tell louder jokes and fail, but other people changing their perceptions of women so that we change that statistic you were talking about, where no one's going to be like, well, we'll have a diverse lineup by hiring one woman. I would love to see the day, and this is where I want to get to. I want to get to a place where we don't where it's not interesting for women to be comics, if you know what I mean.
To do that stuff. Right.
It's just it's just that,
who cares?
We don't think about it. We just want to laugh.
Right. Well, speaking of laughs, how's it been launching a company in a pandemic?
Wow.
That's called a segue. That's a professional move right there.
My best friend and I used to say, speaking of segues, and that can add any conversation into another one. Anyway, I think the harder part has really been the same thing that's been hard for everybody, especially, but not only working parents, which is basically having to be at home, like doing, which is like your house is like homeschool meets we,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I think that's, I've had that's a shared experience. For me, actually, launching this particular kind of company could have done without the pandemic, but given that it happened, we were in a pretty good position because I've been sort of noodling around on gold for a while, since before the pandemic. And I've known since the beginning, even though we have done live classes and live events, I've known since the beginning that my vision was for it to be online, because that way, speaking as an entrepreneur, that way you get reach and scale and growth, which means numbers of people.
Right.
But I also care about finding the funniest young woman in Chakota, Oklahoma, who's going to be the next Carrie Underwood of comedy, right? And if she's not in LA or Chicago or New York, we're not going to know about her, right? So I always knew that I wanted this to be online for a bunch of reasons, including those. And so what happened with the pandemic, obviously, is that everybody got really used to doing stuff online, and even understanding that the upside of so many things that could be done online, and just the fact that you can in the first place. So what shifted for us was that the new thing we opened our doors to our online club this past fall. And what shifted for us, so that was always the plan. But what made it easier for us, and again, could have done without the pandemic, but what made it easier for us is that we stopped having to explain to people that, yes, you can learn comedy online, which we knew before. Comedy was all totally online, and people were doing and sharing and making all sorts of comedy, being, in the same space as their audience. So, but we didn't have to explain that anymore. And so, but the great thing is that the folks in the club now, what they're saying about why they love us, and I'm this is going to sound like advertorial, but I'm really talking about like the yearning.
Go right ahead.
No, it is advertorial, but it's also like the yearning to tell jokes and be heard, is that, which is constant and sort of primal, is that the folks in the club now are, what they say is, I've been looking for a place like this for years. In other words, they don't say, I've been looking for a place like this since the pandemic. They've been looking for a place where they, I said, where the kind of community that we have, that everyone says, every single expert and pro who comes in to talk to us, whether they're super famous or not yet famous, says to us, the most important thing is to find your people. Which was true when I did comedy in the 90s, and it's still true. It's harder to find your people now. So we're your funny people.
Yeah. So what inspired you to create a space for these funny young people? I mean, like they would have, I don't know, if they've been looking for it, I don't know, what brought you to this moment?
Yeah, and to be fair, it wasn't impossible before. Like, as I said, in the 90s, when I did stand up, I found my people, and it was, thank God, it was great. We all did. It was wonderful. So it's not like I'm solving, it's not like I have a whole new idea. It's just a new place for it. In any case, the story, kind of a funny story. The story goes back to not the 90s, but the 80s, 1980, mumble. I'm not sure. When I was on a Jewish youth group ski trip in New Hampshire, and a bunch,
as we all do,
as one does, and a bunch of the dudes had all like borrowed like flannel nightgowns and grapefruits, as one does, and did this probably pretty hilarious as far as I remember, like just random sloppy dumb drag sketch.
Yeah. Ooh, teen boys as girls. Oh my God. It's so funny.
Grapefruits are boobs. And it brought the house down, and that's fine. And I was like, my gang, I was like with my gang was like the funny girls, whatever. And I was thinking, what can we do? What can we do? What's our move? And in that moment, I had two thoughts. One was, what's our move? And the next one was like, we're not going to do anything, because I knew, even though I was only 16 or whatever, even if I didn't like form it as a full sentence in my head, even though I was one of the funny girls, and I kind of, I was like a clowny, I knew that there was no way
Yep.
that is not because girls aren't funny, but because of the way the audience looks at us, and the audience being the world. I knew that there was no
Yeah.
way that a bunch of girls could just like get some other funny outfit and like bananas in our pants. I don't know.
Put yeah, exactly. I was going to say, put those grapefruits in your pants
There's
somehow.
no way. Exactly. There's no way that we would have gotten the same reception just from being dumbasses. Right. And there's no way. And so I was like, well, the only way we can do this is for us to like work really hard on a sketch for a week or whatever, because of the way people look at and receive girls and women. And so in that moment, I was like, nope, we're not doing it. And so, since then I went on to, be the funny one in the musical and be the funny one in the whatever, do stand up, all that stuff. But I don't want to live in a world where girls are like, it's not going to work. It's not just that I don't want to change girls. Girls are fine. I don't want to change girls. I don't like the word empowerment. We're fine. Like we have power. We're not inside.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
But I want to.
We're constantly telling women, like, here's how to take up more space at the table. Here's how to negotiate here. And there's this assumption that we suck at it all. And I don't think we do.
The table. Move over, So back up, So in any case, I want to change that, like the way those teens in that random gym, women. I want to change the way the world looks at women, and I want to do it a fun way, which is comedy. So here we are. Cut to now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So what would your lovely students, your community you're building, what would they have done back then? Was the audience not ready? Like,
the audience
is there any different that these girls could do now?
Now,
I think the audience,
everyone out of the way. They're used to being, we're used to being funny on TikTok. There's so much, it's comedy as a business is definitely still not fixed. But we do have, and we definitely did have role models when I was back then. It's not like night and day. I was raised on Laugh-In and Carol Burnett and I Love Lucy. And like, it's not like I had never seen a funny one. Like, of course we were, it wasn't crazy.
Right.
But just those in the moment moments, we'd all seen those hilarious, like just ridiculously funny women, but also in school, girls were expected to be like, behave and boys were not, and all those things. And that's the water we swam in. So I think now that's changing. And so it's not like I'm not swimming upstream. I'm swimming with the stream. But
well, and I think those boys would have to be cleverer than to just throw grapefruits in somebody's bra, right? Like, I think
probably.
I mean, funny drag is funny drag, but I would think that there's having teens in my life, they would want you to go a little further with that. You're like, we're going to hold you boys accountable to be a little funnier.
Yeah, I mean,
we're going to need you to work harder.
Yeah, they're all in one big comedy room now on TikTok. I love TikTok. It's hilarious, and they're all like, the way you get better at what you are doing is by hanging out with people who are better at it than you. So, that's what I think. That's what all teenagers are doing now, and those who are interested in getting funnier. One thing you can do is just like pick up your TikTok page,
just do it,
and it's fun. People are funny. So I don't know. I think that scene would not have played itself out the way it did then. But I think I forgot a fun fact. I think one of those dudes may or may not have been Adam Sandler. I actually don't remember, but he was there. So.
He's kind of doing the same thing, but he adds pathos. See, he got better,
Yeah. So anyway.
Well, and that's the thing is, I think part of what is the dream of the community you're giving is also being able to give and receive feedback in a constructive way. I mean, because as someone who is always like, I just asked for feedback for the first time, I think in a very long time. Like I take it in. I'm constantly assessing the world around me to say, is this delivering? But I admit to being kind of scared to say, how's this working for you? And so to this new generation to be able to say, I'm trying this. What do you think? And then to offer feedback in a way that they can use. Oh, what a skill.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah, it's great. Sometimes we talk about it as a compliment sandwich. One of our instructors, Elsa Waith, uses that. And it's a little obvious, I like this, I would change this, but I like it.
Yeah.
But still it's nice. And also like,
well, because all you hear is I would change this. We all know that every study says you remember every bad story 4,000 times more than the good compliment.
I guess it's just not that it's just the way the vibe we have set up is that it's not so much, it's not personal, it's just actionable.
Yeah.
It's like, and we frame it around, what do you want to hear more of? And sort of by default, if you hear more of one thing, you want to hear less of something else. And so, and we can, and people are really kind of self-trained just by the vibe that we set up to say things like, you could use another term of one of our instructors. They talk about word economy a lot. So if you say to someone, I think you can use more word economy in the middle part, that's like a positive way of saying you could cut a bunch out. Right. But even then, it's just really not personal, and people just want to be, it's super, comedy has a built-in feedback mechanism, which is laughter, right?
Right.
But also audiences change, moods change, you say something one way one time and a little bit different another time. What we give you the chance to do is also we record everything that we do, so you can go back and see how you did things, one way or another.
Yay.
Or not. You don't have to look at it. And it's just the default setting is super positive, so that within that vibe, it's just nobody blinks an eye when you say, the first bit I found a little, I feel like I've heard that before, but the next bit, so maybe what you could do is blank.
Man,
that was a really vague example of feedback, but people just want the feedback. And so we have awesome Monday open mics where you do whatever you do, but then you also get feedback. And so it's like laughter plus. You get to gauge the laughs, but then you also get to a little insight as to why one way or the other.
Right. Well, so where can people find Gold Comedy and get involved and the like?
Well, thanks for asking. We have a website that has a ton of actionable and snackable free content with how-tos, like how to put together a 5-minute set, or how to bring comedy in your workplace without being a doofus, and stuff like that. And that's all free. Oh, and lots of...
Too late!
Uh-oh. It's never too late. And we have lots of Q&As with cool comedians, everyone from Joe Firestone and Carmen Lynch to people who work in the business, talking about how they got their jobs and how you can get their jobs. So that's all free.
Yeah.
And then our club, you can learn about our club from the website. From Gold. So the website is goldcomedy.com, and then the club is subscription based. So it's a members group, and we have an annual subscription fee, which gets you everything. You pay one time and you get every single class, course, event, special event. We just did a special event. Someone said, one of the gals in the community said she wanted to do a comedy show about mental health issues, because she had just kind of pushed herself to do a spot about her own anxiety. And she was like, can I do this? And I was like, yep. And she did it. And she was like, that was amazing. Let's do a whole show about it. So we did a whole public show where people talked about, either they're just their random weirdness, or they're like actual diagnosable stuff, in a way that where they really didn't make light of it, but took control of it and interpreted it for themselves in a way that made it still unique to them, but relatable to everybody else. And really kind of, all those self-help words, took ownership over it, and it was hilarious.
It had fun. Yeah. It had fun. Well, thank you for joining us on the Breadwinners.
My pleasure.
So great to talk to you.
I love winning bread with you.
Our guest today was Lynn Harris of Gold Comedy. You will find links to Gold Comedy, and I'll find that my research stat to share in the episode description Email us anytime at thebreadwinnerspod@gmail.com or visit us at thebreadwinnerspodcast.com. Please remember to subscribe and to rate and review us. It really helps us grow. And until next week, keep hustling.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.